Hey guys, welcome back. So today we're going to finish out part 9 of our series. This is episode 2, and we're going to basically put all the remaining rides on the south side of the park. We're going to finish out the Midway section, and pretty much everything in the main part of the south side will be completed, and all we have left is the entrance and the roads coming into it on this side of the park. So we got a lot to do today, so let's just jump right into it. All right, so the next ride we're going to work on is the pirate ship ride. This is another very cool Lionel amusement park ride, and but it does have a unique issue with it that you may have to deal with if you buy one, depending on its condition. So, but this is the placement that we're going to do. I picked this place for it. It's sort of like at the end of the coaster here. It's on a little bit of an angle, so not everything has to lay out in the park in a grid, right? You want to make it a little more random and stuff, so it looks really good there. And it comes with that sort of stone base on it, and then in the back it actually has water running down the back, because underneath in the middle there's some water feature and stuff I'll show you. But what we're going to do here is a couple of things on this particular ride. So I'm going to show you its sort of deficiency or a possible problem you might have with the ride and how to resolve it. And then we're going to incorporate it in the back part with some shaper sheet into the mountain or the elevated level there that the coaster's on. And then we're going to, you know, blend it in around the edges and stuff like that. However, we're going to leave the rock. And the reason we're leaving it is because it actually does look like something you would see in an amusement park. Because a lot of times the parks will create sort of fake rock or fake stone or whatever it may be, right? And they're doing it out of concrete, right? It's not supposed to be meant to be real rock, right? It's just they make it out of concrete and then they paint it, right? And it's supposed to look like some type of rock or something around the ride. So that is actually, I've seen that at many parks that I've been at. Great Adventure, like I said, Dorney Park and stuff, where they do that kind of stuff out of concrete. And so it kind of looks like that actually when I looked at it. And so what I'm going to do is in the back where the water sort of runs down like a waterfall off of it, that I'm going to blend in with shaper sheet in the back there. So that'll be sort of hidden, and it'll just look like there's a little water pool right in the center of the ride just for effect, right? But it doesn't go anywhere. And then around the edges I'll blend it in, right, with some scenery stuff. But we're leaving the rock as is. And then on the top of the ride where they have some painted like sort of green areas, then we'll put some real ground cover in those areas to make it more realistic. But otherwise, the gray rock we're going to leave as is, because it actually is kind of realistic of what you'd see in a real park. And then of course we'll put, you know, the pathway in front of it, the entrance, and all that kind of stuff. And then we're going to do something special on this one, which is underneath this particular ride, we're actually going to cut a big hole underneath it so that in the future, if I ever needed to do some servicing or fixing of the drive mechanism, I'll be able to actually just pull it out from underneath the ride and not have to pull the actual pirate ship out of the scenery. If it was like one of the other rides where it's just sort of sitting there with a little scenery around it, it'd be a different story. But since I'm going to shaper sheet it into the mountain on the one side, then I don't want to have to tear that out should I have a problem and I have to fix something on it. I believe right underneath it there's no cross members underneath the platform right there, so it's perfect that I can cut a big hole out. And the whole drive mechanism comes out in like, I think there's 6 screws or something like that, and it comes out as one big unit, so you don't have to worry about taking individual pieces apart and stuff like that. So we're going to do that also on this ride, so that's going to take me a couple minutes more to get that, and then we'll put this in place and then start doing the scenery around it. Alright, so just for reference purposes here, this is the way the ride should be operating. So you see that the ship is sort of going each direction, right? And it stops for a second as it's rolling back the other way. And I'll show you the mechanism and how it kind of works. But that's the way the ride sort of operates in this particular accessory. So here's the pirate ship ride, and like I said, it does have sort of a little bit of an issue with it, and this issue occurs even if you've bought one that is brand new and nobody's ever actually removed it from the box. So the way it works is, I'm going to just pull the boat out from underneath here real quick. But if you look down here, you can see right in the center here, there is a drive wheel, right? That, let me zoom in here. This focuses on this. Okay, so there's a drive wheel right here, right? It's kind of like the real ride, right? If you ever seen the real pirate ship ride, they just have big tires with motors that spin it back and forth, right? So the way this works is underneath there's a gear drive mechanism that a motor, a little DC motor, drives a whole bunch of reduction gears, and then it drives a big round disc that has a lever on it, and that because the disc is going around and the lever is attached to one side of the disc, you know, the lever goes back and forth like this. And it slides across a geared track, and that track is then attached to another gear on this hub that makes this wheel basically go back and forth in each direction. So the wheel does not spin around, it only goes like, you know, 45 degrees one way, 45, and just keeps going back and forth, and that's what makes the ship go back and forth, right, up and down. The problem with this ride is this wheel's material that it's made out of right here. So you see it's like, right now this is a dark yellow right here. Probably when this was brand new, that was more like a clear white. And it's like a rubber, it's like a stiff rubber. I don't want to call it rubber because it's like, it's not like rubber traction tires. It's very, almost like a polyurethane bushing on a car or something, right? It's a very stiff rubber, and it is mounted on a hub. So you can see right there, it's a, I don't know, it's probably a good like 3/8 inch thick piece of material that goes around this white hub, which you can see the edge of it right there, right? That hub is attached to a clutch mechanism so that if it jams or something, it'll skip and won't damage the gears in the motor. And so it's not replaceable. This material is like permanently fastened on the hub. I'm sure you could get it off if you tried, but it would be quite a mess. And you can't just replace the wheel because it has this whole clutch mechanism that goes with it that's attached to it on the hub. So it's not a simple, like, I'm just going to replace the wheel. The problem that occurs here is this material degrades. It breaks down. So I don't know if you ever had a piece of rubber on something where if you've used it for a long time and the oil from your hands started breaking it down and it got sticky. But that's what happens with these. This wheel gets gooey, sticky, and then what happens is it won't roll correctly with the ship anymore. It just sticks there, and either the ship doesn't move, or after, like, I cleaned it all up, then the ship wouldn't move at all because it didn't have any traction. So there are tiny little ribs on the wheel right here itself, on this outer rubber wheel that's on here, and they are supposed to go along with a ridged edge, which is on the bottom of the ship here. So let me pull this around here. You can see right there, you can see on the end, sort of, there's like, now I have something else on here we're going to talk about, but this normally wouldn't have this black strip right here. You would just see the edges here, and you can see the little ridges in that strip that's going down the keel of the ship, right? And so what happens is they're supposed to obviously have enough friction between each other that they, you know, basically work together to create that friction to make the ship go back and forth. So that's what it's supposed to do. When you get it out of the box, what you can find, if it's brand new, the wheel may have broken down and now it's all sticky and gooey and there's stuff all over the place. And if it's one that's been run pretty heavily and it's a used one, what you can also find out is right in the center of this tire here, it has a groove. So in other words, instead of being flat, it's grooved in a little bit from the keel running back and forth on it all the time. So that was another problem with them. So how do you fix this? Because if it doesn't run out of the box correctly, then you know you have this issue. Of course, these parts are not available anymore. These were very, they only made this ride maybe 1 or 2 years, and that was it, right? So then there's not enough parts. There's no parts available for any of this stuff. But What I did is, first of all, I took on the bottom of the ship, I spent like 3 days cleaning off all the goo and stuff on that keel that runs the length of the ship and cleaning out all the ridges. The problem with the ridges is they're not actually sharp, they're smooth. So after I clean that off, and then I clean the wheel off here, which is now very hard, it's not soft or pliable at all, it's extremely hard. Then what I found out, it was sort of out of round. So I took some sandpaper around this wheel and I sanded it, more smooth round. This one had been used, right? So it did have the groove in the side of the wheel here. And after I cleaned it up and I put it back together, it basically was slipping. It wouldn't run because there wasn't enough friction between here and here. If there's too much friction, it doesn't run either. So you got to have exactly the right amount of friction between it. Now, the gearbox on the bottom is actually, if we look underneath here, I don't know if you can see this on here, but it's actually suspended on springs. So this whole gearbox that you see right here moves up and down, right? This whole entire thing will move down from the tension on the top, pushing down on it. So it's supposed to, auto-correct its tension. So as the wheel wears, then, it's always still working. So what I did, because I needed, after I sanded this all down, got it all cleaned up, and it was perfect again, I still had a little bit of a curve here. Now, because the wheel only moves this much, back and forth, what you can do is take the wheel and force it. You have to push it really hard, right? And it's almost like you're going to break it, but what will happen is it'll slip through the clutch. And it'll go click, 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 right? And what you can do is get the other side of the wheel that's never been touched and pull it around to the top, right? And now you have sort of a flat surface instead of a grooved one, and that will start you off fresh right there. But the wheel steel itself is now hardened, and it's just not enough friction anymore. So what you can do is instead you can put something on the bottom of the keel, right? I was trying to figure out what should I do. And if I tried to wrap something around the wheel, it's probably just not going to stick, right? You got a wheel that's moving under a motor, right? It's powered, and chances are something's going to peel off if you try to put it on there. You also have a seam where you have to join the two ends, right? It'd be a lot harder to do. So what I did instead is on the keel itself, what I did is I put a strip of black cloth automotive tape. So that black cloth automotive tape did two things. First of all, it took up a little bit of the space between the keel here and the wheel, the drive wheel, and it created a friction surface because it's cloth, right? Obviously it's not going to glide, it's smooth. So if you're running something along this cloth, it's like, I don't know, it's kind of like if you had a sandpaper or something where you're making a friction surface between the two. But it's the right consistency because not only is it a friction surface, it is the right thickness, and on top of that, it has a little bit of softness to it, which gives you that little sort of cushion between the wheel and the tape strip. And the best part about this is if the cloth tape, wears out in a certain spot, you just peel it off and you cut a new strip and you put it on. So if you can see on mine right here, I made it super neat, right, as far as like the way it rides on the keel, right? I cut it very precisely, thickness, and I ran it down the keel. It almost looks like it belongs there, right? The great part about black cloth automotive tape is it also is very sticky. So once you put it on here, it's not going to peel off or move from the drive wheel. So I've had this running quite a while, and it's been working perfectly now that I did that. But like I said before, I'm going to take the on the platform, I'm actually going to cut a hole this big right here, because you can see it's just 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 screws, and this whole drive mechanism, including the drive wheel, comes out because I've had it out. And then you could service it, fix whatever you need to, and put it back in from underneath the layout, and I don't have to worry about possibly tearing up the scenery around it. So this one's unique. Now, if this was some other mechanism, and I didn't have to worry about that, I wouldn't do that. But just because of, you know, having to possibly do something with either the wheel or even changing out the entire mechanism from like a donor one, it still would be nicer than having to tear it all out with all the scenery around it. So that's what we're going to do. So, and like I said, when you push this wheel around and you click through the clutch, then you can pick a nice smooth area that's better than it was before, and then your ship's ready to go, right? And so, and that's it. And you can feel it when it's on there. You can feel it with the wheel moving a little bit back and forth when you're doing it. And then when you get it on the platform and you actually start it up, what you can do is, because you don't know what position the wheel is where it stopped, right? So if it's only going so far, all you do is you just drag it up a little bit more, and then it'll go the full direction both ways. And that's just a little tip on the pirate ship ride. So if you're lucky, you'll get one where the wheel hasn't broken down yet, and maybe if it's brand new, never used, it will work perfectly out of the box. But most of them, I think, at this point are probably used, and so if they've been run a lot, you're going to have these couple of issues. But it is fixable, and you can get the ride running again if you just put a little cleaning effort into it, use that cloth tape, and you should be all set. Alright, so here's the back of the pirate ship ride. This is what I was talking about, where it has the water, but then it comes down on a waterfall. So we're not going to keep this part. So we're going to shaper sheet all the way up to like here. Okay, and this will all be hidden down here, and it'll just look like a pond more than a waterfall here. And then on all this little green stuff that's sort of painted, this does look fake right here, we'll put actual ground cover on here, on these, to cover all these little green areas to make it look like real ground covers happening right there. But the stone we are going to leave, because I think it does look realistic for what you'd see in a park when they create those concrete, the sort of the fake concrete stones when they create a ride. So, and that's it. So yeah, let me get this up on the layout. I got to cut the hole, which is going to be a little bit of a pain, so we got to get that out of the way. And then once we get this mounted, we'll get the shaper sheet on and we'll show you where we're at. Alright, so we got the pirate ship ride all blended in here in the back, as you can see here, and yeah, we covered all the little painted areas of green on the top with actual ground cover. In the back, we sealed it off with some rocks. I'll show you that in a second, and then put all kinds of brush back there. And so yeah, and then in the front we put these two street lamps right at the entrance to the pirate ride. And then in the front here, what we're doing right now is we are getting ready to build up our grade here for the carnival area. So there's the test of strength right here, and the balancing man on the right there. So those two have those little platforms that stick up. So we've got some foam strips like in between it to bring it up, and then we're starting the shaper sheet around it to grade it up to that level. So those two will be there. Between them will be two Midway games, and then over here will be a Midway game, and then the duck chute, and that will all be raised up and then gradually go down. And then in this corner over here where you can't see where those containers are right there, there's going to be a little building there. I'll show you that later. So, and then there's two more rides that squeeze back here where you see those kind of circles. So we've got a lot of work to do here just to get this all built up and graded, and then we're going to need a walkway that's going to be able to go, grade up to that level. I think maybe we'll fence it off, maybe for, that'll be like a fenced off area for the Midway area, and then we'll be ready to put lighting and some final ground cover on it and stuff like that. So, but yeah, let's get the shaper sheet on here, and then we'll be finished. So what I've done next to get these next two pieces in, which is this test of strength and the man balancing on the chair, right, on the ladder, those have those little platforms, right, that are sort of like built up, because they have the motors underneath them. So I changed it around a little bit. So what I'm doing here instead is I built sort of this upper little mound where they're mounted on, right, and I'll blend it all in. But I use this, instead of like sort of doing rocks and everything, I decided to use it as a sort of a manicured hill. And I'm using these flowers bushes type of thing going around the perimeter of them. And then I created a sidewalk that goes up to the mound and then down the other side to the back, so you can get through it. You know, we walk through it to get to one side to the other. And then this main road comes down here as it keeps going, and then we've got it going right to the duck chute right here, and then it sort of like turns into half the width there, and it goes out to the end, and there's a little building that's going to be there. We'll see that when that comes in. So here basically I've also got three Midway games that I'm going to be putting up here also, in addition to these two pieces that will be up on this sort of hill. And then it'll be all blended in, you know, just like as always. And then lots of figures and stuff to put on top here. So that's where I'm at right now. So all I did was I mounted the two pieces, got them wired up. I put some foam blocks in between them, and then I used some shaper sheet to fill it out. But then I actually put grass mat on top of the shaper sheet in this case, instead of doing the painting and the ground cover, because in this case I want a manicured sort of lawn area on the top here, not a rough area like under the like over here under the platform or anything like that, right? I want this to be a walkable area. So yeah, so that all worked out, and I got the LEDs in the little Midway booths ready to go. So next time we will sort of finish out this whole area right here, including the duck chute. And then the two rides, we got two rides left to squeeze in here, which is the swing ride and the power drop. So the swing ride's pretty straightforward. There's really nothing about that one that I need to do except plop it down and you know, blend it in. The power drop is a little bit different. That's a Lemax ride, and it works a little bit differently, so we're going to have to make a little modification to that ride to make it work so that when I flip the switch, everything comes on and off. So, but that's kind of where we're at right now. So this looks pretty good, I think. Turned out really well, and it'll just be raised up a little to blend in those two rides. Alright, so our next ride that we're going to put on the layout is this power drop or parachute drop ride, and this is from Lemax, and I've got, I think, two of their rides, so, and they kind of all operate the same way. So the way they work is there's a power supply that comes into the ride just for power, and that's it. And then they have this extra little controller that is sort of just hanging off the ride by itself. It's a little rotary dial, right? And it has a click on it, so when you click it, it turns on the sequence, and then if you keep moving it, it turns the sound up and down. So if I click it on, you can see it turns the sequence on, it's going up and down. And if I turn the dial a little more, then you can hear the sounds. So, okay. And that's kind of how it works, right? And as long as it's plugged in, it just keeps, you know, sort of going through its sequences and things like that. Now, the thing about it is I don't want this on all the time because I want to use the timer with it so that I can make it start and stop, right? And you can't really do that with the dial here. That's the problem with it. So we have to come up with a different way, and so what I did is I have these two wires coming out here, as you can see, and it's going to bypass this and do kind of what I want it to do. So let me show you how we handled that. Alright, so the way the Lemax rides work is there's actually 5 wires coming into this little controller. 3 of the wires are for the sound, so you can ignore those. And then there's 2 wires that come in that have to do with the on-off part of the switch here. So what happens is when you click it on, a little lever comes down and makes a contact between these 2 outer wires. And that's what starts the sequence, okay? So if I turn this off while it's running, so you can see it's running right now. So if I turn it off, you notice it's still running. And that's because it finishes out its sequence. So this is just a trigger for the sequence. It doesn't actually give it power, even though it's like an on and off switch. Okay? And then you can see it stopped now that it finished its sequence. So it's always plugged into the wall here. It's got power, but this is actually what triggers it based on those 2 wires coming in contact with each other. So I opened this little thing up, this little switch up here, so I could see how it worked. And that's kind of how it works. So all we have to do is leave it in the off position, which means that the little lever that's making the contact between the 2 points is up and open. It's not making contact. And then I soldered 2 wires to each of those contact, to the wires, you know, where they connect on the inside. And then I just have my 2 wires right here. And so I'm going to leave this in the off position here, but I'm going to use this with my timer boards, and all I'm going to do is touch them, right? And the timer board will keep them active, and it'll keep running as far, you know, as long as the timer board keeps the relay closed. And then once the timer board says it's over and it opens up the relay, you can see it'll stop. So we'll achieve the same thing that we're after, like with the other rides, and all we have to do is bypass that little sort of contact that's in here, and then use 2 wires that go to the relay instead. So really the relay is just replacing the little contact that's inside of the switch here, and that's what you have to do for the Lemax rides. So the guy at the show that I bought it from at York told me, you know, you can't put the power supply on a power strip or anything like that. He goes, because if you interrupt the power, it'll be messed up and it'll damage it. And I'm not sure what he was talking about exactly. Maybe he just meant that it won't finish down to the bottom through its cycle. Because if I turn this on, you can see right here it's running, right? And if I, you know, actually pull the power from the ride, you see it does stop, right? It stops midstream. But if I put the power back on, it just goes down to the bottom, recycles itself, right? And then starts over again. So I'm not sure why you would say something like that, because you absolutely could put it on the power strip and it would just stop. It's just that it doesn't go down to the bottom, you know, to finish out its cycle, obviously, if you kill the power. So, but anyway, these are totally modifiable so that you can make them work with the timer boards just by bypassing the actual switch here and then soldering the 2 leads and putting 2 wires down to your timer board, and you're all good. Alright, so visually let me show you how it works. So basically on the inside of that little switch that you saw right there, it's got 3 wires coming up the center here from the cable, and then it's got a wire on the outside here. So you got a total of 5 wires, right, that come down to that cable like that. So on the inside of the switch, we have the little rotary dial right here. Obviously right here for this part right here, it's got a potentiometer, and that's what makes the, you know, sort of the sound go up and down, okay? But then on the outside here, this is the click part of the switch. When you first turn it and you hear that click sound to turn it on and off, all the click is doing is making there's a little lever that comes up like this, right? And all the click does is it pulls this lever down to make contact with this, and that's what starts the cycle. So if you leave that contacted, then the cycle continues. If you break the contact, then the cycle will continue to the end till the parachutes get to the bottom, and then it stops. So this doesn't actually power it, it just starts and triggers the cycle. The power to the unit is actually coming from the power supply, which is totally separate. Okay, so all we did is we leave this here basically in the off position like you're seeing right here, and then all I did was on this terminal right here and this terminal right here soldered the 2 wires, right? So you got the plus and the minus, right? And cut a hole in the side of the little case. So this is the case. And that's the 2 wires that you saw coming out of my little switch. And so these will go to the relay, right, of the timer. Alright, and that's how I'm going to do it. So basically I'm bypassing that little lever, leaving it in the off position, and then just touching the wires anytime I want to trigger the actual sequence. And so that's kind of how it works for, I think, all of the Lemax rides. So if you get a Lemax ride, just be aware, no matter what the guy tells you at the show. Like I got these at York. I got this one at York. No matter what they tell you, really, you can control them with a timer board or a relay. So you just have to know what's on the inside here and then just bypass this and you're all set. All right, so we have our midway area sort of finished right here. You can see that I raised it up because I was trying to hide all those bases, right, for those operating accessories. For the tested strength right here, and then also for the balancing man right here. So they're all embedded in there, and they were raised up. Now, because this was a smaller raised up area, right, I decided I would put a little sidewalk that goes, it sort of goes up and down, right, through the middle of the midway to both sides of the park. And I put some, you know, benches here for people to sit. I've got some street lamps to light the area right here. And we have 3 midway rides. We got the racetrack ride right here, where I'm not sure how this game works. Something that you're throwing balls in the little hoops or something, I don't know. And then you've got the Hoop Star, which is the basketball one. So I got a bunch of people there with basketball throwing in the hoops. And then we have the ring toss over here. So we've got people with, I don't know if you can see it, but some of the figures have little rings on their hands and stuff like that, where they're doing the ring toss. Now, on all 3 of these little midways, I did put an LED inside of them and a figure inside of them, which they don't usually come with. Okay. And then, you know, we've got a little trash can right here we put on there and stuff like that. So, yeah, and we got a little carnival guy about the calling people in about the balancing man right here. And then we just sort of finished it out here with some benches between that and the carousel. In the back here for the pirate ship ride, we got a line of people right here. And then we have the pirate ship ride. Now, we had to do something we didn't want to, which is I had to move the the pirate ship ride over to the right about 4 to 4 inches, because I needed that hole in the bottom of the layout so that I could get the mechanism out if I ever had a problem in the future. And the problem is that right there on the left there is a major structural joint. That's where one of the legs is underneath the layout, and like 4 pieces of lumber come together, so it was just like the worst position. So I did have to move it over a little bit. Now hopefully over here we still have enough room to get the 2 rides we want in there. We're going to find out today, but we got to get the parachute drop ride and then the swing ride in there. So it's going to be a tight squeeze. We'll see, because we have to leave enough room, you know, between them and the track for the trains to get by too. So. And then over here, we're just starting the duck chute area, but you can see this is on the lower level of the area, over to the duck chute, and then we've got some street lamps in front of there. We're going to continue on with that. We got a lot of work to do. And then, past the duck chute right here, this little area, which is all covered with junk right now, there's going to be a little building, which I'm going to show you what we're going to do there. So I got a little building that we're going to kit bash and put there and use for a certain purpose. So yeah, it's so far looking pretty good in the midway area. So I just have to get all these lights wired up. I have been spending a little time getting all the rides that we have so far on the timers. So I don't have the permanent sequences set as far as the stop and start times on all of them. I'm just throwing some times on them just to make sure they work. So everything is up to this point set on the timers, unless it's a ride like the Scrambler that doesn't need one because that one's automatic. But we've gotten everything on a single switch that basically starts the whole park up and shuts it down. Now, I will make a mention about the power supply for the timers. We talked about this the other day, so let's take a look at that, because I did run into an issue that I had to resolve. So for the little timers, I'm going to have a lot of them underneath there. I forget how many were, maybe 14 of them or something like that. So I didn't want to have to put a power supply for every one of them. So what I did is I bought a power supply that I thought would handle all of them, and I just have them all wired to a distribution board, right? So terminal block, so that I can just put one adapter and it powers them all. So I bought this adapter off Amazon. It's 5 volt, 3 amps, so that's 3,000 milliamps, and each one of those little boards is supposed to be operating at around 50 milliamps each. So that should have been plenty of power, but I think the voltage was not quite high enough on here, because after I started, got about, I'm thinking maybe 6 or 7 boards, what was happening is, even though the boards were counting down and I saw the little light go on the board that should trip the relay was actually not tripping. It wasn't actually opening and closing. And so I did read a little note on the instruction sheet that said if you have a problem with them not opening and closing, up the voltage, because that's apparently what the problem is. So I went out and I bought a 12 volt power supply instead, because remember, these take anywhere from 6 to 30 on their input, and that seems to have solved the issue. So after I put that on, then now all the relays started working again. At first I thought there were defective boards, but they're not. It wasn't the boards, it was actually just the power to the boards themselves. So they need some extra power to make sure those relays actually have enough power to open and close on the boards. So if you're running into that issue, either get some more power supplies, like split them across power supplies, or get a bigger power supply that can handle them all. So I think I got a 12 volt 5 amp power supply, which is tons of power, so it shouldn't have any issue, hopefully. But now we know what to look for, so if we get to the point where we see it happening again, then we can split it out on a separate power supply for whatever remaining boards are left. But just keep that in mind, FYI, if you're using those timer boards and you're having a problem with the relay actually not opening and closing. And by the way, you can hear the relay click. So if you're not hearing the clicking, but you see the little light turn on and off on the board, that means the relay's doesn't have enough power to open and close. All right, so one little note about this this ride right here. So I bought this at York at one of the booths that was selling all these Lemax rides. They were all supposed to be brand new, right, in the box, and so I got this ride. This one is totally not brand new. This has been used. It's, first of all, really dirty, and you can actually see on some of the pieces of it right here, like at the top right here, silver is scratched off the little hub on the top. It's really filthy dirty. It's got to be cleaned. You can see even on top of some of the rides there's scratches and stuff like that. Yeah, I don't know. And there's stickers on the side here are sort of peeling and stuff like that. And it's like that, I don't really, it works fine, don't get me wrong. So I'm still using it and everything, but that's not the point, right? Somebody sells you something at new, it's supposed to be brand new, right? And this is definitely used. It's got stains on it and stuff like that. Looks like coffee stains almost or something, I don't know. So I think it'll come off with water and everything, but that's not the point, right? I don't really like it when people say something's brand new when it isn't, just to sell it. So I'm not a fan of that seller at York now because of that. So just be careful if you're at York and you're buying some Lemax rides from the one booth that sells them. You need to check it out first if they're saying it's new, because they're not. Like you can see right here, it's all sort of scuffed right here on this column right here. Paint's a little scuffed off. Now, when I get it on the layout and everything's surrounding it and everything, nobody's going to notice any of that stuff. So that's fine. I'm not going to worry about it. But it's still just the fact that it's supposed to be brand new and it isn't. Just that just kind of annoys me a little bit. And I just don't like that kind of stuff when people say that type of thing and then it's not true. So just FYI. All right, so the other thing we're going to do with the ride is this sort of has a Christmas type of thing here. It's a snowflake power drop ride. I'm not, into the Christmas theme on my layout at all. And this is supposed to be a regular amusement park, so I just want the parachute drop ride. So we're going to take these stickers off around here. We're going to take these snowflake stickers off in the middle right here. Everything else is all fine. And then on the rides themselves, they've got some little sort of decals. Like there's a Merry Christmas on the back here. But they look like they come off pretty easy, so I'm going to take a little scrubby with some water and try to take all that stuff off. So I just want the plain ride, right? And so stickers, how do you get stickers off without making a gooey mess? Okay, so one method that you can use is that you can take a hair dryer and you just use your hair dryer to sort of heat up this adhesive, and then it should come right off. And you can see there, it comes right off. So, and then if you get a little Goo Gone, right, to take off the little bit of residue that you have left, you can clean off that. And that's an easy way to get anything that has an adhesive on it, like any kind of sticker, pretty much off any item. I use a hair dryer all the time to get like labels off old boxes for shipping and everything when I want to put new ones on and stuff like that. So just a quick tip on that. Little heat from a hair dryer, and you'll be able to get anything with any kind of adhesive backing peel right off. Okay, so we finished out this area right here. So we've got the Midway section all finished, and then we have duck chute over here. So what I did here is I just got, you know, the figures that come with it have the rifles and everything, and then but the duck chute wasn't lit up on the inside, which is really strange. They've got these sort of chasing lights on the around the perimeter of the opening, but they didn't have any lighting on the inside, so it looked really dark. So I put an LED in there just to light that whole thing up, so it looks like the rest of the Midway games. And then I've got the swing right here. I did have two street lights right in front of that, and guess what? The swings came out so far they wrapped around the pole and yanked it. So I had to take those street lights out because they were, even if I had them on the outside of the perimeter of the ride, the swings actually, as it gets faster and faster, go out farther and farther, just like the real ride. So kind of funny. We got the parachute drop ride, of course, in the back here. Then I've got the line of people back there. Put some benches around there too, and that closes out the back there. Now it's kind of hard to see, but what I've done is around the perimeter of the park I have this fence. So this is a wooden fence by Woodland Scenics makes this particular one that I've wrapped around the park. So I'm going to wrap that, you know, kind of around the whole park there, and it goes around and it ends up in the back here, right into the mountain, you know, that mound there, right there. So it comes across and it comes all the way back. I don't know if you can see it. It's sort of along the tracks, comes behind the buildings here, and I've got it coming out to the road here. So then we'll come along the road with a fence all the way down to the entrance of the park. So we'll kind of do the same thing. Now, here's the little building that I kit bashed. So I saw this little Menards building, which was it's called Melrose train station. It's a little train station building, but I thought it would be perfect for, guess what? A first aid station, because it was just the perfect size, and I had this little spot on the end here. And so what I did is I sort of kit bashed it. I made some little signs right there. You can see on the front there it has an emergency. I created this little first aid sign as you're walking up to the platform, and then I put another little first aid sign right here above the doorway, same type of thing as the one on the roof. But basically, otherwise I didn't change it. It's a lighted building, has all kinds of LEDs in it. And then it's on a platform, you know, because it's supposed to be a little train platform. So I had to raise up the sidewalk here. So you can see the sidewalk sort of gradually goes up to the platform. And I just put some hedges around it to cover the openings on the side. So you don't even know. It's hollow underneath there. But because I basically just hot glued the edge of the foam right to the end of the platform right there. So. And that's it. So yeah, that whole section is now finished. I put some trees in the back of there. I'm jamming trees anywhere I can, but I don't want them to block anything. And yeah, so I've got benches. I got some more. I still have to put some more figures on these benches. But any place I have openings, I stick in benches pretty much everywhere. You can see on the Midway games right here, I've got 4 benches right here. Okay, and then I stuck a trash can right here too. So that's Hoop Star. They're playing some kind of hoop basketball game there. And then we got the ring toss and all kinds of... So some of these I might actually not put on timers. I might just let them run, like the test of strength and the duck shoot. They've got cool background sounds too, right? So as the duck shoot, for instance, as they're firing, you hear the firing of the gun, and then you hear the little BBs hitting the metal, and then the little ducks and the little signs fall over. So that one's a really cool one. And then, of course, we have the pirate ship here. Carousel, scrambler. Now, on this front walkway here, I don't have any figures yet because I'm going to have to get up here and do a whole bunch of work right here, which will be the next video where we're going to be making the actual entrance to the park. Parking lot right here, and then fixing up this road here, which of course got a lot of damage from me walking on it and everything. Restriping it. We'll show you how we restripe the roads and all that kind of stuff. And yeah, I think that's about it. So everything else here is finished. Oh, let's take a quick look at something else right here. Remember our lake? It's taking forever to dry. We're not quite there yet, believe it or not. We're close. But you can see kind of what it looks like. It looks really good. It's got sort of this green, and then the light is kind of reflecting off of it. But in the center here, it's just a tiny bit still bluish, but it's getting there, and it looks really good as it's drying around the edges. So that'll be great when it's finally fully dry. But yeah, it's underneath there. It's taken forever. Gotta get a side view of the other side of the fence right here from the back, so you can see how it kind of runs along here on the back of the park, right? So that's what I did. Occasionally I stuck a little bush growing up on it or whatever it may be, but it looks really good, and it comes around the entire perimeter of the park because obviously you can't have people crossing a live railroad track, right? And then they're really nice because they have sort of this, like, the brown part on the bottom of the fence, you know, where it touches the ground and everything. And really nice detail on this fence from Woodland Scenic. So worked perfectly because I was trying to give it an old school park look instead of a modern chain link fence there. So I think it works out really well for this particular park, right? And I think that's, you know, pretty much it. You can see the back over here near the power drop ride and stuff. So there's details on all the sides. Just can't see it from every angle. But yep, that's pretty much it. Here's the back of the end of the fence right here. You can see which I have it ending right at the edge of the mountain here. So which is on the back of the power drop ride on the back here. But so I'm good all the way up to this point on the one side of the park. So we will be finishing up the entire south side, what I call the south side of the park, or the left side of the track there, on the next video. So we have to make an entrance because there's obviously nothing really made out there that you can buy. So we're going to make a park entrance where they're going to come in, you know, to buy their tickets and things like that. This is going to be the parking lot you see right here. This sort of cream colored concrete. I'm gonna get this patched up, all repainted, and then striped with parking spaces and everything. And then we'll probably put some kind of gate or fence here that can be opened and closed right at the entrance of the park. And then we have the road that comes into the park, goes out to the main road. So that all has to be restriped. So we'll show you how we do that on the next video. We got lots of street lights we need to put along here too and everything, and then tons of cars, as many as we can squeeze in here, even though it's kind of a small parking lot for the size of the park. But I didn't want to waste too much space on the parking lot itself, so yeah, I think I'm gonna or you know, just pack as many cars as I can in here that makes sense. Maybe I'll expand it out a little bit right here to the back of the sawmill, right? The guys can get in the sawmill from this side, so maybe I'll expand the parking lot out here or something. I'm not sure. We'll see. it's always on the fly type of thing. We're always playing with it as we're building it, so we'll see what happens. But once we get that all done, then what we'll do is we'll program all the boards underneath, get everything timed up, and then we'll have a final, on the next video we'll show you a final view of the entire south side of the park running and all lit up and everything, and should be pretty cool. So we are moving along pretty good. This is Thanksgiving week, and I'm on vacation this week actually, so I have a lot of time to spend on it to try to build as much as I can. So hopefully we'll finish up this whole south side, and the video will be coming out pretty soon. Alright guys, well I hope you enjoyed that video of the sort of completion of the, almost completion of the south side of the park. Stay tuned, because the next episode we are going to completely finish it. We're going to have the entrance done and all the road coming into it, so that'll be pretty cool. That'll be a little shorter video because it's not as much work as what we've been doing in the other ones. So, but that's coming up very soon. Okay. As always, make sure you subscribe, hit that like button, put your comments down below about this video, and as always, I'll see you on the next video. Peace, guys.